Hi, so in this video we're going to talk about how you can work with freelancers. So I have some experience freelancing on Fiverr, where I did mainly Unreal Engine stuff, and before a year or two ago I also worked on 3D modeling and some other stuff. And basically I wanted to talk about how you can work with freelancers, how to get better quality work, stuff related to goals, tasks, milestones, and a bunch of other stuff, which should give you some interesting insight about pricing, how to figure out if somebody is doing good work or bad work, how to even give tasks, milestones, goals to the freelancer, and some other stuff. So let's begin. First thing we're gonna talk about is pricing. Pricing of a gig can get a little bit complicated. So for example, you could assume that something is going to be low quality because the price is low. For example, if we have a gig where somebody is going to work on your project for $10 an hour, you might think that's a really low price. That basically means it's going to be low quality work delivered, which can be true, and I would probably argue it's true decent amounts of times. But you have to consider one thing in here, which is the demand for the thing that you are trying to purchase low or high. So for example, if the freelancer works on something very specific, I don't even know, for example, for Unreal maybe it's like game playability system, but I think that's not becoming more popular. So maybe you have something very specialized for that freelancer, and because the demand for that thing is very low, the freelancer has to put the price a little bit lower just so he can get any customers basically, but maybe he's doing good quality work. So just because the price is low doesn't necessarily mean that the quality is going to be low, but if there is a high demand and you're just trying to take the cheapest guy, it's probably going to be rushed, it's probably going to be pretty quick to finish, and the guy probably has like a bunch of people just coming to him because it's cheap and he just does it cheaply. So I think looking at the demand of the thing that you're trying to purchase, so is there like a bunch of gigs for it, is it highly demand, or it's something hyper specific niche that you basically want to get, and for that you might be able to get high quality work for a lower price. And we're going to talk about later how you can detect if the work is higher quality, lower quality, because even that I don't think is that easy. The next thing for pricing is if you're going to get higher quality work for higher price. So this is kind of the flip of this, where it also depends. If you have a person that gets really high demand, so this is kind of basic economics, where if a person has high demand, he's going to up the price until he gets to the point where if he ups the price anymore, he's going to lose more gigs than he can work on. And if he sets the price less, he's going to get more work than he can work on. So he's going to have to discard some stuff and still get the price lower. Basically, as a freelancer, you just want to get the highest price where you still have a bunch of work or enough work to fill up your time basically, and if the demand gets low, you're probably going to lower your price just so you can get more customers. So just because the price is high doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be high quality work, because it might just be a person that is really popular and reliable, and that's why people go to him. So maybe somebody is selling something for $100 and he delivers like 6 out of 10, but it's kind of reliable, you can see his track records, he worked on a bunch of stuff. But maybe you can also go to someone who has less demand, less customers, but maybe charges 50 for that same thing, but he also delivers 6 out of 10 work. But maybe he's a bit more risky because he doesn't have the background like the other guy. So for example, how I would think about this is, let's say you have like one paragraph in your game that you want voiced over, and this is like a big thing, you want it high quality, you want it nice. So maybe for that you buy a service from a person that's a bit more expensive, because it's just one-time thing, you just want it like done well, you pick the person that is safer if the price is a bit higher. But let's say your game has a lot of dialogue and there is a bunch of voiceover that you need, and you might need to spend 10 times more. You need to spend $1,000 on this more popular guy to do this thing, but maybe now the other guy that is $50 is a bit more enticing for you because he would do the same thing for 500. So now how I would approach that as a buyer is basically, since the $50 per paragraph of voice or whatever guy is maybe a bit more risky, I would first, for him, do a little test. You just tell him, hey, do this for me for $50. You see if the quality is something that you like. If you don't, you've lost a little bit of money and you go with the other more expensive guy. But if not, you like what the $50 guy is offering, you go with that, and then you tell him, okay, now do these voiceovers for another 200 and maybe then another 250, and you did all of the voiceovers. So if you kind of test it, you would minimize the risk that you're getting for the price. This is the same thing when you are dealing with somebody that is selling something for a very low low price, where you can just test him with a small task, see if he's good or not. If not, you go with somebody else. So you don't give him like a huge thing. He finishes it, low quality, but he kind of doesn't care even if he lost you as a customer. He has a bunch more. Yeah. So you usually want to like do a little thing, test the person, see how he does, and then go for something more risky. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is quality. So quality can be a bit weird, where since I'm freelancing on projects and people may need me for like a feature or two, I just need to do one part in the game, stuff like that. When I go into a project, it often happens, or most of the time honestly, that blueprints are a bit messy. I can see that this person hired other freelancers that just did like a quick and dirty work. Everything is kind of a mess, calling everything else weirdly, bunch of like random components that have one function in them. Or I can see that this person that basically wants me to work on this project that doesn't have much experience in Unreal, just wants to make something, has some money, and then kind of throws it at different people, and it's not going to go anywhere. What's going to happen is the project is going to get messy, complicated, buggy, and they're going to at some point stop making it. So you as a buyer, to figure out if somebody's doing good quality work, I don't think there is like a shortcut for this, but you just need to be familiar with what they are working. You need just to be enough familiar with what they're working on so that you know if they're doing good or bad work, or you at least have a person, maybe it's like a 3-person team, and instead of you as like a business person in the team just hiring somebody to work on some feature, you say to the programmer, hey, can you just check his work? We're gonna do a small thing, then see if he does well, and then maybe we can rehire him or give him some pointers of what he needs to change, stuff like that. So you need to know what's happening so you know if it's good or bad quality work. This also goes with higher prices, usually a bit safer, but I also saw a lot of bad work done by people that also costed a decent amount. For example, for blueprints, because I do a lot of stuff in blueprints, there is almost no standard of how you do things. There is like no error handling, no proper comments, there might be like random stuff. Nobody cares about performance. So that's kind of why my channel and stuff like that is a lot focused on blueprints and how you can make them better and how to work more efficiently and how to be performance aware and a bunch of that stuff. The reason for that is that I just see a bunch of low quality blueprints everywhere. So you just need to be familiar and have some idea of what is good, what is bad. And you can kind of mitigate this by buying somebody that's more expensive, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're just going to get more work. It's just going to be the case that you're more likely to get better quality work, but kind of no shortcut for this. If you want good quality, you just need to understand something about the thing that you are hiring people for, because if you just have zero idea, you just have no ability to evaluate whatever you get back. If it's technically quote unquote working, you don't know if it's performant or not. So if somebody's creating like a character controller for you, if you just see this character like jumping around in the level and moving, you might be like, okay, he did what I asked him to, but then you add 3 more of these characters and the game starts lagging because it's completely unperformant, but you just didn't even know that you should have tested for that because you're just not familiar. So just get yourself familiar with what you want to create. Okay, so third thing is going to be hourly versus milestones. So generally, I think I prefer hourly work just because for milestones, it's always a huge guess. Unless it's something that I have already done in exactly the same way 20 times, then I might be choosing milestones. But otherwise, I would always prefer hourly work because it's just really hard to estimate and somebody's going to be disappointed in the interaction. So either I'm gonna set too low price for me in the milestone and kind of be annoyed by it because I worked way more than I thought I would have to finish it, or the buyer is going to be disappointed with the work because they thought it's going to be more stuff done or something like that. So milestones are kind of risky because you're basically guessing on a large amount of unknown stuff. So how much is going to take me time to do this, this, and this while this is happening, and I need to send it to the buyer to check it out, to give me pointers. Maybe he has a bunch of like small things that he wants to change. So there's a bunch of stuff in milestones. The exception is your gig is basically, hey, I'm going to do this one specific thing in your game in this way. And you already did this thing, maybe you're like integrating, I don't know, Steam rewards or something, and you did it 100 times and you basically know ins and outs of it. Milestone is probably fine, but in general, I prefer hourly when it comes to this. And also for milestones, if you have like a very clear goal, this is from a buyer's side. If you have a very clear goal, that can also help a lot if you prefer milestones. So if you don't have a clear goal, you just generally want, hey, I want my character to be able to shoot and zoom in or something like. It's kind of vague, like what you want. Do you want it like third person, first person? Do you want these types of guns? Do you want it to be able to swap guns in game? Or, you know, you have to be like very specific with the goals, and then milestones become a bit more achievable. Still kind of guessing. So usually I would just go with hourly work if I could, but yeah, it could be a preference here. Okay, the next thing that we have is time or activity tracking. So I don't think I have met a single person that likes to be tracked or to like have to time track or do stuff like that. So I find this generally kind of annoying, and I don't think it translates very well to if the person did a good job or not on the thing that you wanted them to do. So we go back to this, is the quality good? How did you manage who to choose for the price? How do you work with hours milestones? We're gonna have some other stuff after this. But yeah, I find it kind of annoying as a freelancer. I think everybody basically finds it annoying as a freelancer. And if you're like a person that doesn't know anything about the thing that you hire somebody to do, I guess for you to see some numbers in here is kind of nice. But again, if you just don't know anything about the thing, you just will guess on the quality, hope that the guy that's making it for you. Maybe if you're hiring somebody that already did good job for you, maybe you hope that it's good again. But yeah, I just find it kind of annoying, and I wouldn't foresee there is like different ways that you can figure out stuff for time activity. Usually you can just do hourly, and then you can do maybe ask a freelancer to write down all the things that he did in each hour, or for like the chunk of hour, maybe he worked 5 hours in a day, he can like write you down or something like that. What I like to do for people is just record a quick video and just say, hey, for this gig we worked 5 hours, I did this and this that we talked about. I maybe had extra time to add this, or maybe this was complicated, so I did it this way, and I'm gonna go through details of all the stuff that I have done. And if you have some experience with quality, then you can figure out if I did it well, did it how you wanted it to, which I find way more useful than just random time tracking that I guess clicked enough times the keyboard or something. So I find it not that useful. Okay, so the next thing that we have are goals and tasks. Or I guess I should have put it like goals versus tasks. So most of the time what I get from clients are tasks. By the way, just in the video I'm using clients and buyers. It's kind of the same thing. On Fiverr we have like buyers and sellers, so that's why I'm using that. But yeah, buyer is basically a client. So most of the time from clients I get tasks. And I find issue with this because most of the time people that are asking me usually are not that... They're kind of people with money that don't know much about Unreal or fresh into Unreal. And the issue with tasks, so how I, in this context of freelancing, how I see goals and tasks is, goal is kind of the end point. This is what you ideally want to see happen for the project. So maybe your goal is, okay, I want to have the character that can jump to, I don't know, 1.5 meters, and I want him to go at this speed, and I want him to go fast, and the idea of my game is like Super Mario, and it's like this and this. So you're basically explaining me the end goal, what I want to get. And if you're like a competent or experienced developer, this is probably the best thing that you can get, because then you can strategize around it how you want to make stuff. If, for example, somebody just tells me, hey, I want you to make me a character that shoots and runs around or something, that's fine. But let's say the bigger context of the game is a massive one player against 200 AI that's shooting at him. Now, because I didn't know that, I might have focused a lot on just making a higher quality character that actually doesn't perform well. So now, after adding 10 of these characters in the level, your FPS may start dropping, and there is no way you can get up to 200 characters. But because I didn't have that context, that I need to pay heavy attention to performance, because you want like 200 characters on screen fighting with you, stuff like that, shooting bullets, where you have to optimize heavily for that. Generally, I would suggest for most people to just focus on goals. Tell to the freelancer, hey, I want this feature to look like this, and don't tell him, hey, these are the steps that you have to do to create this feature. I want you to create it like this and this and this and this. You just tell him the end goal of the feature, and if the freelancer is competent, he is going to find the most optimal or like relatively optimal way to do this thing, instead of you telling him the tasks because you didn't know what will be the best sequences of events to do for this feature. Now the feature is buggy, maybe unperformant, maybe you want it to work in these different scenarios and now it's not working. So usually if I'm not sure, if the client's giving me vague goals or he's not even sure what he wants to do, stuff like that, I'd probably just decline to work with him, because I don't want... most of the time it's like a mess. Somebody's gonna get disappointed where I might do stuff that he's told me to do basically, and then the end product he's gonna to say, hey, I'm not sure I wanted this or wanted it something else, but I basically followed every step of the way how he told it, but he didn't actually know what were the best steps basically. So the analogy for this is, let's say you are just a guy that doesn't know how to cook and you want to hire a chef. So you come to the chef and you tell him, hey, I want you to, I don't know, add 10 grams of sugar to this bowl. The chef is probably going to look you weirdly and ask you like, what are we trying to make? Like, what's happening? And you could answer like vaguely, okay, yeah, hey, we want to create some dessert thing, or you might not even know. You might just tell him, hey, the thing that we are making is not important. Like, I just need this specific thing to be done. Just add these 2-3 ingredients and mix them together or something. And the chef could follow all of your steps and do the mixing, cooking, and all that stuff. And at the end, he can present you the meal, and you can say, hey, this is not the dessert I wanted, but the chef is just going to say, well, I literally followed all your steps. This is what you asked me to do. You didn't tell me the more general thing or like the goal of this thing. You just kind of tell me steps, and now you get this mishmash of random stuff. So similar thing that, yeah, is going to be happening if you have vague goals, or you're just not experienced in Unreal, but you still want to hire someone to do something, or not Unreal. This could be applied to anything, but yeah, I'm using Unreal here. But tasks are not always bad. I just think most of the times are. But if you are, let's say you're like a senior or like an experienced developer, and you just need a little bit more help with the project and you want to hire someone, I think in this case, tasks are fine, because this is like a chef hiring another chef. He can just tell him, hey, mix these 3 things. I don't even kind of need to give you higher context, because I kind of know the recipe, I know how to make it, stuff like that, but I just need extra hands or something. And then the other chef can trust him more and just do what he says, instead of just random person asking for random ingredients. If you are very experienced and just need additional work, I think tasks are fine. But otherwise, if you're not that confident, or you want something advanced that you've never done, focus more on goals and see if the quality of the freelancer is something that is good enough. So you do have to have some experience. So we come back to this. You do want to have some general idea of what is like a good thing that is finished in this place and what is the bad thing, just so you have some control over the quality that you're getting. But yeah, in general, goals that I find way more useful than just tasks. And the third thing that I kind of added last second, but I think it's just worth mentioning, is marketplace assets. I get a lot of requests for like, hey, I wanted to make this in this game, and I downloaded or purchased these 3 marketplace assets, and I want you to combine them to create this cool futuristic shooter looter game. For these, 95% of the time I decline them, because it's never going to work. So just purchasing some marketplace assets like I don't know, FPS framework, and you want like inventory system, and you want I don't even know, like looting system, and you have another UI menu system and stuff like that. The issue with combining these assets is it becomes very messy. Everyone is using different structures, data types, ways on combining stuff, so they are not going to work coherently. It's going to be a nightmare for me as a freelancer to work on it. It's going to take a long time. Most of the time I could just make the thing that you want me to make from scratch, probably the same time or less, with less bugs and less weird stuff and less boilerplate. There is also the word that people like to use, like it's always positive or something, which is modular. So the issue with marketplace assets is that they also are usually expensive, or quote-unquote modular, which basically means there is way more features than you usually need. So they may make like a FPS framework or something that works with like different types of games, but any individual developer probably just want to make one specific first-person shooter. So then there is like bunch of stuff that he doesn't need, and there is a lot of bloat that you could just basically remove and you're never going to use. So for example, maybe this FPS framework has weapon customization, but in your game you don't have weapon customization. It needs to be like Counter-Strike. So now this framework is going to have a lower performance because it has all of these additional features that might be, some of them may be working in the background that you don't need. The code is going to be way more messy because it needs to integrate all of these gun customization features. Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of issues. So usually when it comes to this, just if you're not familiar with Unreal or game development and you just want to buy some assets and then find a guy to combine them, just don't do it. It's not going to end well. You're not going to make anything playable or marketable or whateverable. There are some marketplace assets that are nice, but they're usually smaller and contained. So maybe like weapon customization, but that's just specializing in just customizing simple type of weapon, and maybe that's kind of useful. So smaller assets can be useful here and there where maybe it's kind of convenient to use it. Maybe something like separated, maybe like main menu thing could work. But combining different things that are not made to work together is going to be a complete nightmare. One example of this was when I was working with, I think it's called ESRPG, and it's kind of like a third person like open world thing where you can run around, you have looting, building, stuff like that, but it was so unperformant, it was impossible to work with. It had a lot of nested object oriented things happening where you'd have like a base character, then this type of character, then combat character, then player character, then AI character, then player character archer, then it was complete mess. I think at some point I spent like 5 or 6 hours in one day just to find like one variable where I could change it. I think it was like health or something, where you have your base health and then it was like overridden at some point, but then some other thing is like changing it based on max health, and I literally had to spend 5 hours for something that, if you're like working on like a decently managed project, that's like a 30-second thing, maybe 20-second thing. You're just changing like a value somewhere. So yeah, if you're very experienced and you know what you're doing and already like work with some assets and you kind of generally know what's happening, you could do something with marketplace assets and combining them, but in 99% of the time I would say just stay away from this. If you have this idea of just combining random assets and you're not experienced, just want to hire something, it's not going to happen, it's not going to end well. So a little bit of a rant at the end, but yeah. So hopefully this helped you somewhat to how you can get decent pricing, figure out if the quality is good, probably work hourly with developers, not milestone unless you really know your goals. Avoid time activity tracking generally, focus on goals, more on tasks. Usually if people are competent, they're gonna give you a better result if you just focus on goals, and avoid marketplace asset, combining them and stuff like that. So yeah, see you in the next video.